Hello, Mr. Miles. I'm glad you came to my office. What can I do to help you today?
I'm here to ask for your help with a difficult matter. I have proof of corruption in Baltimore County, Maryland. We need to stop it now.
Please tell me some of the details so we can work together and expose this corruption.
Officials in Baltimore County are working in collusion with a Wall Street front bank, who received taxpayer-funded bailout money to defraud property owners and enrich themselves at the public's expense. They are attempting to defraud me of my inheritance over a simple mistake. If I refuse to pay them what they want, they will take everything from me that I have.
That's horrible. That sounds like extortion. No wonder you seem depressed. Have you notified the authorities about this criminal activity?
Yes. I have contacted virtually every state agency in Maryland and even state senators and representatives, including the governor. But no matter whom I contact about this matter, they simply pass the buck and redirect me to another agency. Not only do they refuse to help, they refuse to uphold the very laws that they themselves have sworn an oath to defend.
It sounds like the corruption in Maryland is systemic and widespread. Could you please tell me how all of this started?
It began in April of 2010 when I went to the Baltimore County Tax Office to make a payment for the home I inherited from my grandmother. I was doing renovation work myself. I took with me a certified bank check for $500. I could not afford to pay in full right then but wanted to pay in installments. I was informed by Bob Frank, tax office manager, that they were not accepting partial payments but that I had until December 2010 to pay and the figure on the tax bill would not increase by much. I now believe I was lied to or deliberately given false information, very possibly to increase the revenue for Baltimore County.
Please continue.
2 trips were made to Councilman Bartenfelder's office on that day informing them of the situation.
What happened next?
Around August 10th, I received a letter from Baltimore County stating that a tax lien had been issued for $1,747.36. I was stunned. No lien holder was named in this letter. I called the number listed and was quoted a figure more than double the amount stated on the letter. When I questioned this figure and quoted the law, the phone was hung up. I called back soon after and the phone was not answered. I left a message on the machine. My call was never returned. On August 30th, 2010, I contacted Councilman Bartenfelder's office and explained what had happened. I requested a meeting with the councilman.
I'm listening.
In October 2010, I contacted Councilman Bartenfelder's office again and they assigned another assistant to help me. I was told that a memo would be immediately sent to Keith Dorsey, OBF director, and that a carbon copy would be mailed to me. 2 internal memos were sent, but the first memo was completely ignored. On November 9, 2010, I received a call from Mr. Dorsey in response to a inter-office memo sent by Councilman Bartenfelder earlier in the day informing me that he would void the tax sale if I brought a certified bank check to his office in Towson. Bob Frank, tax office manager, instructed me to bring a check in the amount of $1,852.20 to the tax office and to let him know the day I was coming. He said this figure represented the amount of the taxes including interest and penalties.
May I interrupt you just a moment? Weren't you relieved at that point to know that this matter was over with?
I felt very relieved, but the matter was far from over. On November 22, 2010, I went to the Baltimore County Tax Office and met with Bob Frank. The first question he asked me was, "Do you have the check?" I then presented a certified check for $1,852.20. He inspected the check and verified the amount. I had requested that he sign a receipt that I brought with me, which he refused to do. He seemed not only uncooperative but threatening. I was also given some papers to sign for an installment plan, which papers I went ahead and signed in front of Mr. Frank, without reading them through, and which papers were misplaced and mislaid due to negligence of the tax office. I was in some degree of stress at this point and not feeling well at all. Nevertheless, I was escorted to the cashier where I handed the check over and was issued a revalidation receipt $713,026 on the back of the tax bill.
Did you expect your property to be taken off the tax sale list?
Of course I did. But on December 1, 2010, Mr. Keith Dorsey, OBF Director, left a very unfriendly and threatening message on my phone answering service. The message was extremely disturbing, and I immediately transferred this message to a recorder and played it to several people. I had also found that my property was still listed in tax sale on the Baltimore County website. Mr. Dorsey had lied to me when he told me my property would be removed from the tax sale list. It was not.
Could you briefly tell me what has transpired?
I immediately sent a certified letter to Mr. Dorsey asking that my property be removed from tax sale. I also received an alleged refund check for my property tax payment from Bob Frank, which I returned from U.S. Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger's office. The congressman attempted to investigate but was stonewalled by Baltimore County. The county refused to answer me or cooperate with a U.S. congressman. When the county did answer me, they cited the wrong laws and parcel number of my property and refused to correct the matter. In February, I received a complaint filed against me by Malik Tuma, claiming that I had not paid the 2010 property tax when it had been paid by me. I was forced to answer the complaint and provided proof of payment to the court, but the judge dismissed my answer.
Were you able to stay on top of this? Did you try to find a lawyer?
Yes, I was able to keep up with this, and a few dear people helped me with suggestions and research, but I could find no lawyer willing to take my case pro bono.
What did your research uncover?
Among other things, we learned that a huge tax lien industry exists in Maryland and that most of the alleged tax sales are rigged and dishonest. The sale of my property to Capital Source Bank/IN Financial was rigged by Baltimore County. It is part of an elaborate scheme and extortion racket that is unchecked and unregulated. The government created this racket whereby they could profit through the misery of those unable to pay property taxes. There is so much money being extorted from property owners and so many hands in the pot that this corruption has eaten away at the very foundations of our Constitution and government.
On October 14, 2011, you had a hearing before a judge in Baltimore County Circuit Court. Can you tell me what happened at the hearing?
Yes. The day before the hearing, I received a 12-pound box of documents from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in San Francisco, California, in response to complaints I filed with the federal government against Capital Source Bank/IN Financial. This box contained over 2,200 pages of documents. At my hearing, I told the court of my receiving these documents and that they were relevant to my case and requested a continuance. The judge refused my request.
What happened after that?
I then tried to submit the recorded message left on my answering service by Keith Dorsey, OBF Director. The assistant county attorney objected on the grounds that I had electronically altered the recording. The judge sustained his objection against all reason and common sense.
I've never heard of such a proceeding.
After that, I was sworn in and testified in my own behalf to the facts. The hearing lasted for 3.5 hours. It was simply an open hearing to determine that I had paid the 2010 property tax. Keith Dorsey was then sworn in and took the witness stand. When I was called to cross-examine him, I had trouble gathering my thoughts and requested a lunch recess. This was all new to me.
What happened after the court reconvened?
I continued my cross-examination of Mr. Dorsey. The county finally admitted in court that I had made the property tax payment and was issued a revalidation receipt. But then they claimed that it was only a partial payment, but offered no proof to back this contention. Mr. Dorsey even claimed, under oath, that he did not know what a revalidation receipt was. The judge said that she did not know what the word revalidate meant. I was dumbfounded by this admission.
This sounds like it was a setup.
I think it was. But after the hearing, Malik Tuma, the attorney for Capital Source Bank/IN Financial, stated to me that they had not paid for the tax lien. He said they had only issued a promissory note. If they didn't pay for the tax lien, then they have no standing to sue. I have filed a motion for reconsideration, but I never received the judge's written order. I also had a recorded teleconference with Dorsey, Birch and Frank. They said they would apply my payment to the back taxes and send a statement. Then, They took my money and put it in an unclaimed property fund. They will take my home and keep my money unless they are stopped.
Ladies and gentlemen, please do something to help this man. He is standing for our right to own property and the Constitution. He is fighting against an evil that affects every person in America. We cannot allow this to continue. This fraud and theft must stop. Contact the email address that sent you this movie and help us fight for justice. Thank you.